Alright, so I've loaded the replay. I've gotten up to just like around a standard part here. It seemed like you got the opening right. The one thing I would say is the SCV is a little scouted. It's a little too soon to send the SCV out, especially on a 2-player map. You can just send the SCV out when this finishes. And on 4-player maps, you just send the SCV, like let's say like these are the 4 bases. You can just send the SCV to rally that way and go to the Reaper to go this way. And you'll end up finding, you know, if it's not, then you'll end up just seeing that you just have to go cross position. That's usually how I deal with that. But for the most part, for 2-player maps, you can just wait to scout with an SCV. So I'm just going to go ×2. I would write this all out, but it's a little too long to do. You end up going for reactor, which isn't a bad thing. I still think that Reaper is still pretty good in this matchup, but it doesn't matter too much. And then depending on what kind of build you're going for, depends on what you do after this, but it looks like you're just going to go reactor, just standard Hellions. Reactored Marines isn't too bad. This is more of a TVP build right now. I would actually still prefer to get the Reapers. So far, it seems pretty normal. Okay, so it looks like you're going for Banshees. So at this point, yeah, you got your gas. If you're going to be going for Banshees, you're going to want to get the gas a little sooner, because you're not going to have enough gas. And start building Hellions right away, and you want to get a depot right when you start getting 2 Hellions at a time. So it times out, because I'm going to guess you're going to get supply blocked here. Well, maybe not actually. You got the depots at around the right time. Oh, you're not even going for Banshees. So I'm just guessing based on what I would do. But a lot of the things I'm noticing under your build is that things like the way that you play Terran really well is that while you're never cutting SCVs, you should always be producing, like always. It's a huge deal, especially in TVZ, because timings are, you know, having enough units out at a timing versus Zerg is crucial. I mean, if you're just even 5 seconds late, you could lose just because of that. So just make sure that you're building on time. I like the depot placement. This wall off actually only takes 4 buildings to wall off. So I would look that up. And I don't know actually if this is walled off or not. It might actually be. I'll have to test that. But I think you only need 4 building units to wall that off. I can't tell if that's walled off. I'll have to like test that later. Because if so, that's a pretty cool wall off. I didn't know that you could only wall it off with 3 if that's possible. So this is pretty good. You're going for... The one thing that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense is that you're not really going to get a whole lot done with just 1 Liberator with this build. And I guess this was just to like be defensive. Right now how I see it, TVZ has either 2 options you've got, at least how I play. You either open up Banshees or you go for 2 Liberators at a time. And you're playing, and I think this is okay to go for a fast CC like this, because especially now that you see he has the gold base. But this Liberator is doing nothing for you being back at home on this push. And actually, I think you could have kept pushing this, because he's got really nothing to defend. If you would have brought the Liberator over and sieged it on this, I mean, I don't see where he could be walking to do anything about this. He has roaches on the way. So, I mean, it's not like, you know, you could have been pressuring this, killing these larvae off with the Liberator. You could have done a little bit more. And I would say like right now getting stemmed this early, it doesn't really do anything for you. Like you're not really gaining anything out of getting stemmed this early in the game, because you don't have anything really to defend with. The thing that's going to help you stop these kind of pushes, or like let's say he did a roach push, is doing double you get like 4 liberators out, or like you get like 2 or 3 banshees out if you go those routes. So far, like this stim. And one thing you could also do to optimize your build a bit more, I'd say after around 6 Hellions, it's about max that you should make. You lift off this factory, and you get a tech lab, and you get 2 barracks right when you do that. And then you shouldn't even have to sacrifice the starport to lift off these for the barracks. So I think there's a little bit more optimization that you could do with this. Also, your gases are saturated really late on the natural. See, like right now you're wasting time. And like I told you, TVZ is all about the timings. Everything about TVZ is about how fast you can get your units out to stop any kind of timing attack. So I'm sure you lose to a lot of all-ins, and it's because you don't get units out fast enough. Because right now, like, if he could have done an all-in and killed you. Like, he didn't even need to saturate anything really. Like, he could have just he could have put some drones at the gold and just attacked you and probably won. I don't know why he's got drones. Did you drop over here? I didn't see it. But yeah, you want to use these you want to use this factory to get Marines out, because early game Marines are those are the most important things you can get. Marines and the 2 medevacs, because you want to do a timing, because you should already be out on the map right now with more Marines pressuring, especially since you have this medevac with stim. I mean, this should have been the first thing you did, was to go around dropping, because he went roaches. You could be dropping like all over the place right now. And see, now you finally move over your factory, but this was a little late, because you could have already been producing out of these 2 barracks 4 Marines at a time for about 2 minutes now. So I would work on your transitions with that. Also, when you get gold bases, just, I don't know, pull, like, I mean, you have a lot of extra SCVs here, just pull 12 SCVs and put them on here. And then just rally out, because it's going to give you your income really fast, and it's just going to be worth it just to put your SCVs on the gold immediately. So you just want to get that saturated immediately when you get a gold, and just rally to your normal blue gold or blue minerals. So I'm imagining you've had to have seen that he's going roaches at this point. So you know if he's going roaches, he's going to be going for Ravagers. And I think you realize this, and that's why you were starting to get tanks. So this is good. A good reaction here is going 5 racks and 2 factories for tanks. One thing too is that if you're going to play this greedy, then I think that your 2-2 is a little late, especially considering that the Zerg's 2-2 is way ahead of yours. So I think something got messed up there. You got combat shield on the way. That's kind of late too, considering how soon you got the stim. But so far your spinning skills are really good. Besides your depots here, and honestly, I think that you have so many Hellions that you didn't use early game that these really aren't going to do anything right now for you. They are going to help versus Lings though. He did make some Lings. But Hellbats are kind of wasted space, especially if you get 8 of them early on and you didn't really push with them. So you're pushing out with only 1 tank versus a 2-2 Zerg with Roach Ravager. So even though it looks like you're really ahead, because your upgrades are really late and he has the upgrade advantage on you, it is actually probably in favor of him right now, especially since you're attacking on the creep. Because you should have already been clearing this creep off, and you should be pre-splitting when you get on the creep. So like these chunks of Marines should already, like these should already have been split up. These ways, like they should already be split up, right? Like you shouldn't have to be reacting now to this. So that's the first thing that I see. that's wrong with this engagement so far. Plus the fact that he shouldn't have this much creep up on the map because you should already have been pressuring and killing that off. So you don't really want to be on creep versus a Zerg. There's better alternate routes that you could have taken. You could have gone over here or something, forced them to go up a choke. You know, so let me pull this down. So like, so you could have, I guess it'd be a little harder, but you could have gone the back way. He has no vision. You could have killed, you know, it had something fly around. Maybe you get a Viking, kill all overlords on the map, so then you can do more pressure around. And you could have gone up here to kill the 4th, because that's really what's going to help you beat the Zerg, because you don't want a Zerg to have a gold base. And then you take free baneling hits, which didn't need to happen. So I think you could have actually won the engagement here, even though you're down on upgrades. And you could have picked up this tank. And then staying here fighting this is actually bad for you. Especially since you left those people there. So you're still okay, but the thing that you have to realize is that he has Roach Ravager. You could have been dropping over here. I mean, if you look on this side of the map, he has no vision for any drops. You know, maybe, especially versus Roach Ravager, when you pushed... Oops, hang on. When you pushed up onto the creep, you could have just sieged on this creep, and I don't know if this is actually particularly the right idea. I think what you could have done is what I said earlier. You could have attacked on his 4th, if you look at the mini-map. Rallied all your forces, so just don't even rally to the 4th, just rally to protect your 4th, all your siege tanks, and it had like a 2 medevac or 1 medevac drop, go over here. And then all of a sudden, and like you could have even had like the thing that's hard about Zerg on this map, and it's an advantage for Terran, is that he has to either defend this base or let either that base or that base die. You drop in the main, he sends roaches over there, you can just pick up and go down to his 3rd base. And you have the 4th base being pressured. So this is a hard map to be going Ravagers on as Zerg. So you won't really see Ravagers very often on this map because of that. Another thing too is, like I said, your upgrades are super late. And upgrades, even back in Winged or Heart of the Swarm versus Roach Hydra, you needed to only build basically medevacs, tanks, and bio. So you need marauders, tanks, medevacs, and in this game, you get to get... So I would say after you have like 6 medevacs, maybe 8, you should start putting on liberators. So at this point, liberators should have already been added on. At least this part of the game. I think there should be more liberators for you. And there's lack of drops. So like right now you have medevacs. You should repair them with SCVs because they're low. And you should fill up both of these medevacs and drop, like I said again, at the 4th and the main base, and you have tanks to defend. Like, you have the defender's advantage versus this kind of army, so he shouldn't be able to attack into you at all, especially with the army that you had earlier. And you have more army supply than him, so you have the macro to do it. And then transfer all these SCVs over to your main. Another thing that you're lacking a little bit in is getting your vehicle weapons. This is actually a pretty big deal to get vehicle weapons with siege tanks, especially versus his composition, because he's going to have carapace upgrades, and you're not going to be able to do as much damage to tanks. Instead of maybe taking 2 hits to kill them, that's going to take like 3. And that makes a huge difference with Zerg. Every little thing makes a huge difference. So again, you're going out to pressure, but you're not putting pressure in places that need to be pressured. So this place right here is completely open for harass. His 4th base is completely open for harass. I mean, he has no vision on the map right now. And like pushing up this middle is not really doing anything for you. It's not putting you in a strategic advantage at all. I mean, Zerg kind of wants to trade armies with you because that's just how Zerg works. At this point in the game, they're just going to make a trade with you. And since you have an upgrade disadvantage... Well, one thing he doesn't have, though, I don't understand. He doesn't have a range upgrade, so that's a little weird. This game's a little weird, but if you had your upgrades on time, this game should be really easy. But he is going to transition to Ultra, so that'll make more sense later on. But here you're not really doing anything. You're not saving any scans in its late game. You have 2 gold bases, so you shouldn't even be mulling gold bases because it's actually wasting your income. And you're still oversaturated in the main. You want to get those over to the 4th and start your 5th now. Right when you landed on your 4th, you should have started your 5th. But yeah, right now this isn't giving you any strategic advantage. All it's doing is buying the Zerg time. I mean, what are you going to do? Push up all the way up mid versus this? I mean, it's not really going to give you any advantage. And you see what I'm saying here? Like, nothing's really getting done in mid. It's just buying him more time to make an army. And Ultras are on the way. Especially at this point in the game, you definitely need to be getting Liberators. Because the threat of Ultras is too high. And they're just too good not to have. So again, the same thing here. You could have taken a positional advantage here, especially since he's going to attack into tanks for some reason. Your army should already be like, take this cluster, put it back, take this cluster, put it back. And like you'd have like, and this would create like a concave, right? And like Terran with the concave with siege tanks in the back firing in. I mean, the Zerg's not going to be able to do anything. And like even this battle is not going to be good for him. But since your units are so close, so like you're actually kind of hurting yourself. Like you're not being as optimal as you could be, especially versus infestors and banelings. You could have more of a split here and more of a concave, and you wouldn't be taking splash damage from your tanks, banelings, and infestors if he uses them. But either way, you take a favorable engagement. I'm more or less being picky about it because these engagements, as you get higher level, make a lot more. They count a lot more to have that position. And again, you could have been having free drops, at least in the main base, because there's nothing defending it. And on his 3rd base. And then you don't have scans and it's the mid game. I mean, it looks weird because it's 12 minutes in, but this is technically the mid game now. Like, you shouldn't have to spend any mules for anything. Like, at this point, it should be all on taking creep. And you just wiped out his whole army and you're backing up. At this point, I mean, he's only got lurkers. You know you just killed his whole army. You could just load in these medevacs and drop straight to the main and kill him. And, like, he couldn't even walk up this ramp if he wanted to. So I'm going to probably guess that you have a hard time ending your games sooner than you should, I guess. Or, yeah, I guess you finish your games later than you should. And again, this is not very saturated, so you're not really getting the benefits of the income. And then now you've kind of let him remax himself and let him stabilize. Because the thing about Zerg is, when you kill their army, you could have like ran up here, you know, had scans to kill the lurkers, ran up here, sieged in, you know, like on top of this ramp, and this base is definitely gone. You go back and like right when remember when I said like when you build your 4th, like right when it's done, build your 5th. You could have been sitting on a 5th base, and then like you would have 3 bases of income again. And like this 5th base is actually super late, and so is the Zerg's 5th base. The Zerg should already probably have like 5 or 6 bases by now. Same thing for the Terran, because late game right now is pretty insane in how exponentially you can get bases. Another thing too is that you only really need 8 racks and 2 factories. Until you have like a lot of orbitals, having all this extra production that you're throwing down is not going to do you much. Like these extra 2 barracks, it's actually just going to waste money. Because you're already kind of having a hard time building Marines, and you're not really backed up building them, so I wouldn't really build more. Because versus Zerg, if you're going to lose your whole army and you need to have that many productions, you're probably going to lose anyways. So you siege up in a bad spot again. Take free hits. And again, this is going up in mid base is accomplishing nothing. It's not. I think of like these bases as objectives, right? You want to play the objective game. you want to bring your army on this side of the map. Take out this base because it's so important. Because Zerg on 4 bases is really hard to kill at a higher level. So your whole focus on TVZ is killing the 4th base. And then you attack into lurkers. So when you have this kind of ground-based army, then you could rip them apart by doing a double drop over here, a double drop over here. He has to go deal with it. You pull your army and come in over here. So you got to pull the Zerg thin, and that's how you beat these kind of army comps, because these are really strong on, you know, frontal engagements, because that's what they're meant for, but they're really bad against being split up. And I think you've realized this at this point, that you need to start dropping, but you're only sending 1 medevac. You should be sending 2, you know, filled up 2 dropships, gone this way, filled up 2 dropships, gone this way. You finally saturated this base, so you really just finally hit your 4th base income, and you're not really mining out of anything else. You're also dropping mules in on gold bases, which is wasting your minerals, because mules aren't getting the extra minerals. They're just getting what they would get off of blue minerals. So you're actually losing a lot of income for SCVs on these bases. So never mule the gold bases. And then this drop has been sitting here for a while. You have the right idea with these tanks. It's just that you're not executing them in a favorable position for you. And like, you should move up these a little bit more. You know, had the siege tank siege, move these up, you know, slightly go up a little bit. You're kind of forcing these and putting them too far forward. I mean, you're just going to end up losing all these tanks for free, because you just put them too far forward. You know, instead you could have taken these 2 liberators, you know, dropped your tanks right here maybe. You know, put your liberators up first. You know, you could have had liberation zones right here. He probably would have backed off. If he would have attacked you, you would have had tanks, you know, all back here, and it would have been a favorable attack for you. Now, another thing that you got going wrong for you is that you're only on 2-1, and now he's approaching having 3-3, and he has +3 ultralists. Now, he's kind of got this weird composition going on because he doesn't have the attack. So you should be able to crush through this because he has such a weird composition. Because technically your upgrades are better, and you are, and it's showing. Another thing too is that your tank should have like +2 by now. So your tanks would even be hurting more. And you're especially going to need that +3 tanks versus ultras if you do go tanks. And I actually think that versus Zerg at this stage of the game, I don't think you should be getting ultras or tanks versus ultras. But it is good versus the Roach Ravager combo. And right now this drop could be doing something. I mean, this could have killed this base. This could have killed this base. You know, there's a lot more that you could be doing right now. Especially since you do have the economic advantage. At least right now. You might end up losing him. But he attacks in the Liberator, so this is what should have happened originally. So you lost a lot more. So you ended up, your unit's loss ended up being really bad in this scenario because you didn't take a good position. He got the favorable trade there. And Zerg should really be losing way more than a Terran. That's why typically Zerg needs to be a base up on Terran, because Terran can trade so cost effectively versus Zerg. You have Ravens, which aren't really going to do anything for you because you have scans. It's not like he's getting anything with air. So these Ravens are actually just wasted a little bit. They'll be good maybe if you just built 1 for the creep, but most for late game Terran you don't really need get a Raven unless like it's versus air, and then you're losing units for free here, and then this drop has done nothing, and you're still ahead. And like Zerg having minerals really doesn't matter. He's low in gas, but he's starting to get that ultralist count high, and you realize this, you start getting liberators. At this point I would say getting siege tanks is a lot less important because they're not as good versus ultras anymore. I think Liberators is your go-to at this point in the game, and Marauders. And look, you're really oversaturated, and you should already probably have a 6 base by now. you should be maintaining 3 mining bases at all times of the game. And Zerg has 1 mining base, 2 mining base, 3 mining bases. Now he's not, he's kind of late too in transitioning on some of this stuff, because he should, you know, transfer these workers up to here. But he's kind of got the right idea here for late game for how many bases you need, and you're finally starting to set up your bases. And this should have been set up a long time ago. Let's go and play this faster. Okay, so we're coming up again. You keep doing this like middle strategy, and I guess I can't emphasize more than you can go to other bases and siege them and give yourself a better advantage. Like you could siege your tanks down here, and then he's got to run all the way around, right, to get to them, especially versus the composition he has and drops. So I honestly think that the theme of this is more drops, be more strategically and positionally, use your good macro to an advantage. Because I actually think that your macro spending is at pretty close to what I think a master's level would have. You just have a very simplistic understanding to strategy, I think. And that's not anything bad, I'm not insulting you, it's just, I don't think you have ever, been told that and seen it maybe, or seen it as clearly. So it's fine, it's not a big deal. But these tanks aren't going to be doing anything for you. They're not cost efficient versus ultras versus what he has now that he has ultras. But yeah, it's kind of the same stuff. You're just pushing mid and it's not getting anything done. I probably sound like a broken record, but it really is just that important. And you see how he's checking for bases. So you're going in, you're fighting an engagement. You still only have 2-1 Marines. You should have 3-3 easily by this time in the game. Upgrades in this matchup and in every matchup are probably... Upgrades are gonna make you win games at a higher level. So this is pretty okay, actually. You could be picking up these tanks and sieging up this base. Finally, 18 minutes in, we're playing. And you like right now, I don't know what your focus is. You're picking up your tanks and going over here when you have a free base to kill. Don't just sit there and let the Zerg. One of the worst things you could do versus Zerg is attack on the creep and just sit there. You can never just sit there versus Zerg because it's never going to work out, especially versus high-level Zergs, because he could have just sent 3 ultras or 2 ultras to this planetary, killed it. He could have had a run by, go over here. I mean, versus Zerg, standing still is not an option, especially the higher level that you get. You see, I think you can start to see now how much time that you're starting to waste. Now you finally have gone up and put the tanks up there, but these tanks in the front are a little out of position. But this is good, actually. Now that you've finally done it, what should have happened initially is you should have just put 2 liberators, one right here, and you know what I mean, on the other side of that hatchery. Picked up a tank, put them on this cliff, one on top so you could have some Marines on the bottom and some on the top. And I mean, how do you attack that as a Zerg? I mean, that's gone for sure. And then you could, continue your attack a bit more and be, dropped over there. And there's so many options that you can do with Lincoln Terran versus Zerg. I mean, there's for sure one thing that he can't do, and it's attack into you. So, I mean, he can't just attack ultras into, all these liberators. And you don't want to get into melee range with your bio. I mean, you should be kiting really fast. I mean, you should be constantly stutter stepping as if those are banelings hitting you, because ultras are pretty crazy. And I mean, your units lost tab is kind of it's not as optimal as it should be versus a Zerg. I mean, it should be way more in favor of Terran. Because if you're ever even versus a Zerg, they're winning. Now in this case, he's kind of thrown armies away. He hasn't done it. He has a lot of problems of his own that he's done. But you could have ended this game, I think, like 10 minutes earlier. Way earlier than what this game has gone into. There could have been a lot more drops, a lot more aggressive play. And, you know, maybe I'll show a replay or something of what you could do, like what I do. You know, it's not obviously going to be perfect, but, you know, I could even analyze pro replays of TVZ, and I can show you how aggressive they are constantly. And you see it as the game ends, and I mean, you do have a pretty good resource advantage at 7,000, and that's probably like what you would need to beat Zergs. I mean, it's in like one base is around 10,000 resources, so that's why Zergs have to have that base up. And honestly, he kind of didn't have a good composition for what you had. This should have been an easier game for the Zerg than it was, especially since you kind of gave him a lot of outs. But yeah, you could expand more in your TVZ matchup, I think. But yeah, this is I think you have the potential to be in Masters. You just are lacking some strategic depth, I think. I think you just need to go back in your replays. And I mean, you're at the level now that you should go, like, you should be able to go in your replays and look, okay, well, I sat in mid all game. He had this base with no defenses. His main base was completely exposed. I could have taken out all his tech. You know, I could have taken out this base. It was pretty easy. I mean, there's only 2 spine crawlers. It's not going to do anything versus stemmed bio. You know, versus mutas, you kind of can't drop as much, but you still can. But yeah, I think I'm kind of sounding like a broken record right now. I keep saying the same things, but it's really that important. So I'll go ahead and analyze your TVP replays. But yeah, this is, I think you could also optimize your builds a bit more. But if you have any questions on like what you like on build orders, I can give you something, maybe a replay, and help you out a little bit. So yeah, I'll go ahead and analyze your TVP replay though.